What happens when one of comedy's most controversial figures meets Hollywood's most politically charged late-night host? You won't believe what unfolds when Ricky Gervais steps onto Jimmy Kimmel's stage and refuses to play by the rules. This isn't your typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral completely out of control when two massive egos collide in front of a live studio audience. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe what unfolds. This confrontation has already sent shockwaves through Hollywood and sparked a social media firestorm that's still raging. The atmosphere in the Jimmy Kimmel Live studio was electric as Ricky Gervais made his entrance, that familiar smirk already playing across his face. The audience erupted in applause, but there was something different in the air tonight, a tension that seemed to crackle between the host and his guest from the moment Gervais settled into the interview chair. "Ricky Gervais, everybody," Kimmel announced with his trademark grin, though those watching closely could detect something forced about his enthusiasm. "Welcome back to the show, my friend." Gervais leaned back in his chair, studying Kimmel with those piercing eyes that had made countless celebrities squirm at award shows. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Though I have to say, after watching your monologue tonight, I'm surprised you had time to prepare any questions for me." The audience chuckled, but Kimmel's smile faltered slightly. "Well, we like to keep people informed about what's happening in the world. Speaking of which, I wanted to talk to you about your recent comments regarding Hollywood's response to social issues." "Ah, here we go," Gervais said, his voice dripping with mock anticipation. "Let me guess, you're going to lecture me about how celebrities should use their platforms to make the world a better place." Kimmel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly not expecting such immediate pushback. "I'm just saying that when you have influence, don't you think there's a responsibility that comes with that?" "Responsibility?" Gervais laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Jimmy, you spend half your show telling people how to think and vote, and the other half crying on camera about every political issue that trends on Twitter. And you want to talk to me about responsibility?" The studio audience fell silent, sensing the shift in tone. This wasn't the playful banter they'd expected from these two comedy heavyweights. Kimmel's face flushed red as he leaned forward. "I use my platform to speak out against injustice. What do you use yours for? Making jokes about things that actually matter to people?" "I use mine to make people laugh," Gervais shot back, his voice rising. "Remember laughter, Jimmy? It's what comedians used to do before they became part-time political pundits and full-time virtue signalers." The tension in the room was palpable now. Kimmel's producers could be seen frantically gesturing from the wings, but their host was too far gone to notice. "You know what, Ricky?" Kimmel said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Maybe some things are more important than getting a cheap laugh. Maybe some of us actually care about using our influence for good instead of just stirring up controversy for attention." Gervais' eyebrows shot up, and that dangerous glint in his eyes intensified. "Oh, this is rich. Jimmy Kimmel, the moral authority of late-night television, is going to teach me about integrity? The same Jimmy Kimmel who spent years doing blackface on The Man Show?" The audience gasped audibly. Kimmel's face went white, then red again. "That was a different time, and I've apologized for that. People grow, people change." "Do they?" Gervais pressed, sensing blood in the water. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've just found a new costume to wear. Instead of blackface, now you wear the mask of moral superiority." But this was only the beginning. What happened next would change everything. And the real fireworks were just about to begin. Kimmel's hands were visibly shaking now as he gripped his note cards. "You want to talk about masks, Ricky? Let's talk about yours. You hide behind this whole "I'm just telling the truth" persona, but really you're just a bitter man who gets off on tearing people down." "Bitter?" Gervais laughed, a sound that cut through the studio like broken glass. Jimmy, I'm one of the happiest people on the planet. I get paid millions to say what everyone else is thinking but is too scared to say. The difference between us is that I don't pretend to be something I'm not. The audience was completely silent now, some viewers looking visibly uncomfortable as they witnessed what was supposed to be light entertainment transform into something much darker. Kimmel stood up abruptly, towering over his guest. You know what your problem is, Ricky? You think being cruel is the same thing as being honest. You think making people feel small makes you look big. Gervais remained seated, that infuriating smirk never leaving his face. And you think lecturing people from your ivory tower makes you a hero? Tell me, Jimmy, when was the last time you actually talked to a regular person? Not some Hollywood elite at a charity gala, but a real person. Dealing with real problems? I talk to real people every day through this show, Kimmel snapped, his voice cracking slightly. No, you talk at them. There's a difference. Gervais finally stood up, matching Kimmel's height. You preach to them about what they should think, how they should vote, what they should care about. You've turned late-night comedy into a political sermon, and then you wonder why half the country can't stand you. The camera operators were having a field day, switching between wide shots of the two men facing off and close-ups of their increasingly hostile expressions. In the control room, executives were frantically debating whether to cut to commercial. At least I stand for something, Kimmel shot back, his carefully crafted TV persona completely abandoned now. At least I'm not afraid to take a position on issues that matter. You stand for whatever your writers tell you to stand for, Gervais replied coldly. You're a puppet, Jimmy. A very well-paid puppet who thinks he's pulling his own strings. The insult hit its mark. Kimmel's face contorted with rage. You arrogant piece of— Careful now, Gervais interrupted, wagging a finger. This is network, television. Wouldn't want to say something that might offend your corporate overlords. But Kimmel was past caring about corporate overlords or network standards. Something inside him had snapped, and what came out of his mouth next would make headlines around the world. You know what, Ricky? You want honesty? Here's some honesty for you. You're a has-been who peaked with The Office and has been desperately trying to recapture that magic ever since. Every joke you make, every controversy you stir up, it's all just a pathetic attempt to stay relevant in a world that's moved on without you. The studio fell into a deathly silence. Even the camera operators seemed frozen. Gervais' smirk finally disappeared, replaced by something much more dangerous. Is that what you really think, Jimmy? Gervais asked, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Yeah, that's what I think, Kimmel replied, chest heaving. And I think everyone watching right now knows it too. Gervais nodded slowly, as if processing this information. Then, without warning, he began to clap. Slowly, deliberately. The sound echoed through the silent studio like gunshots. Bravo, Jimmy! Bravo! His voice was calm now, which somehow made it infinitely more menacing. You know, I was going to go easy on you tonight. I was going to stick to the usual pleasantries, maybe make a few harmless jokes about your ratings. But since you want to play hardball? He paused, letting the tension build to an almost unbearable level. Let's talk about why your show is really failing. And trust me, Jimmy, it has nothing to do with me being irrelevant, and everything to do with you being exactly what's wrong with Hollywood today. The battle lines were now fully drawn, and there would be no backing down from here. Gervais took a step closer to Kimmel, his eyes never leaving the host's face. You want to know why your ratings are in the toilet, Jimmy? It's not because people don't like comedy anymore. It's because they don't like you. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kimmel's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. You see, Gervais continued, his voice gaining momentum. Comedy used to bring people together. It used to be about finding the absurdity in life that we all recognize. But you've turned it into a weapon. Every night you get up here, and you divide your audience. Half of them cheer, and the other half reach for the remote. "That's not," Kimmel started, but Gervais cut him off with a dismissive wave. "Oh, but it is. And the beautiful irony is that you think you're fighting the good fight. You think you're on the right side of history. But what you've really done is turn yourself into exactly what you claim to hate. An elitist looking down on ordinary people and telling them they're wrong for not thinking like you do." The studio audience was transfixed, watching this masterclass in character assassination unfold in real time. Some were recording on their phones, knowing they were witnessing television history. Kimmel found his voice again, though it came out as more of a croak. "I give people information they need. I help them understand what's happening in the world." "No, Jimmy. You give them propaganda wrapped in punchlines." Gervais' voice was razor-sharp now. "And the worst part? You've convinced yourself that makes you noble. You're like a drug dealer who thinks he's a pharmacist." The comparison hit Kimmel like a physical blow. His face went from red to purple. "How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth?" Gervais spread his arms wide, addressing the entire studio. "Ladies and gentlemen, witness the tolerance of the tolerant. The moment someone challenges their narrative, out come the claws." Several audience members were now actively uncomfortable, shifting in their seats as they watched their beloved host being systematically destroyed by his guest. Kimmel was shaking with rage now. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Coming on my show and ambushing me like this?" "Ambushing you?" Gervais laughed, but it was a cold, calculating sound. "Jimmy, you started this the moment you decided to lecture me about responsibility. I'm just finishing it." "This is my show," Kimmel shouted, his voice echoing through the studio. "My show, my rules. Your show, maybe. But these are real people in your audience, Jimmy. Not actors, not paid supporters. Real people who are watching you have a complete meltdown because someone dared to disagree with you on your own program." The camera caught several audience members nodding in agreement, while others looked shocked at the spectacle unfolding before them. "You know what the real tragedy is here?" Gervais continued, circling Kimmel like a predator. "You used to be funny. I remember watching you years ago and actually laughing. But somewhere along the way, you decided that being right was more important than being funny. And now you're neither." That was the final straw. Kimmel's last shred of professional composure evaporated completely. "Get out!" he screamed, pointing toward the exit. "Get out of my studio right now!" Gervais didn't move. Instead, he looked directly into the camera. "You see that, folks? This is what happens when you challenge the Hollywood establishment. They don't debate you. They don't try to prove you wrong. They just try to silence you." "Security!" Kimmel was yelling now, his voice cracking. "Get security up here now!" But Gervais wasn't finished. He turned back to Kimmel with that same dangerous smile. "You know, Jimmy, I came here tonight planning to promote my new project. Instead, I think I've done something much more valuable. I've shown everyone watching exactly who you really are when the cameras are rolling, and you can't edit out the parts you don't like." Two security guards appeared at the edge of the stage, but they hesitated, unsure whether to actually remove a guest during a live broadcast. Kimmel saw them and became even more frantic. "Remove him! Now!" Gervais held up a hand to the security guards. "Don't worry, gentlemen. I'll show myself out. Unlike some people, I know when I'm not wanted." He straightened his jacket and looked one final time at Kimmel, who was standing there shaking with rage and humiliation. "Jimmy, it's been educational." And with that, Ricky Gervais began his walk toward the exit, leaving behind a shell-shocked host and a studio audience that would never forget what they had just witnessed. But Gervais wasn't quite done. As he reached the edge of the stage, he paused and turned back toward the cameras, that familiar mischievous glint returning to his eyes. The entire studio held its breath, wondering what bombshell he might drop next. "You know what, Jimmy?" Gervais called out, his voice carrying clearly across the stunned silence. "I just realized something. This whole thing tonight, This isn't really about you and me, is it? Kimmel, still trembling with rage, managed to sputter. What are you talking about? This is about fear, Gervais continued, walking back toward center stage with deliberate slowness. You're terrified, Jimmy. Absolutely terrified. And you know what scares you the most? It's not me. It's not my jokes. It's the fact that deep down, you know I'm right. The audience was mesmerized, watching this psychological dissection unfold. In real time. Several people in the front row were leaning forward, not wanting to miss a single word. You've built your entire career on being the guy who fights bullies, Gervais said, his voice gaining power with each word. The champion of the underdog, the voice of the voiceless. But look at you now, Jimmy. Look at yourself. You're screaming for security to remove someone whose only crime was disagreeing with you. Who's the bully now? Kimmel's face was a mask of pure fury. But underneath it, something else was visible. The dawning realization that he was losing this battle spectacularly, and doing it in front of millions of viewers. I'm not, Kimmel stammered, but the words wouldn't come. For the first time in his career, the man who made his living with words was speechless. You want to know the real tragedy here? Gervais pressed on, sensing his opponent's complete vulnerability. It's not that you've become everything you used to mock. It's that you don't even realize it. You're so drunk on your own righteousness that you can't see how far you've fallen. The studio band, unsure whether to play Gervais off or remain silent, sat frozen with their instruments. The producers in the control room were in complete chaos, with some arguing to cut to commercial, while others insisted they had to let this play out. I built my career on making people laugh, Gervais continued, his voice now carrying the weight of absolute conviction. You've built yours on making them choose sides. And tonight, Jimmy, they're choosing. Look around you. Look at your audience. Kimmel's eyes darted to the crowd, and what he saw there clearly shook him. While some faces showed sympathy for their host, many others were nodding in agreement with Gervais. The comedian had successfully turned Kimmel's own audience against him. This is unbelievable, Kimmel whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. This is absolutely unbelievable. What's unbelievable, Gervais shot back, is that you thought you could invite me on your show and not expect me to be myself. Did you really think I was going to sit here quietly while you tried to make me part of your political theater? The security guards were still standing awkwardly at the edge of the stage, clearly unsure whether they should intervene in what was rapidly becoming the most talked-about moment in late-night television history. Kimmel suddenly seemed to find his second wind, his anger reigniting. You think this is all a game, don't you? You think people's lives and struggles are just material for your comedy? No, Jimmy. I think comedy is how we survive the struggles. But you've forgotten that. You've turned comedy into a weapon instead of medicine. And the saddest part is, you've convinced yourself that makes you a hero. The words hit their target with surgical precision. Kimmel actually staggered backward, as if he'd been physically struck. I help people, he shouted desperately. I give them hope. I give them information they need. You give them what you think they need, Gervais corrected coldly. There's a difference. And the fact that you can't see that difference is exactly why your show is dying a slow, painful death in the ratings. The final insult was delivered with such clinical precision that even some of Kimmel's most loyal staff members winced. In the control room, executives were frantically trying to figure out how to salvage what was left of their host's dignity. But Gervais wasn't finished. He had one more devastating blow to deliver, and as he prepared to speak again, every person in that studio knew they were about to witness something that would change late-night television forever. Gervais looked directly into the main camera, addressing the millions watching at home with the confidence of a master performer who knew he had complete control of the moment. Ladies and gentlemen watching at home, he began, his voice calm and measured. What you've witnessed tonight is exactly what's wrong with modern entertainment. Your host invited me here under the pretense of an interview, but what he really wanted was validation. He wanted me to nod along with his political sermons and laugh at his tired jokes about people he's never met. Kimmel tried to interrupt, but Gervais held up a hand without even looking at him. When I refused to play along, when I dared to suggest that maybe comedians should focus on making people laugh instead of lecture them about how to think, your host revealed his true character. He didn't engage with my ideas. He didn't try to have a conversation. He attacked me personally, and then tried to have me physically removed from his studio. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Even the crew members had stopped what they were doing to listen. This is the tolerance you're always hearing about, folks. This is the open-mindedness. The moment someone steps out of line, the moment someone refuses to conform to their narrow worldview, out comes the censorship. Out comes the name-calling. Out comes the security. Kimmel finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. That's not what happened here. Gervais turned to face him one final time, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute finality. Jimmy, that's exactly what happened here. And the beautiful thing is, it's all been recorded. Every word, every tantrum, every moment of your complete and total loss of professional composure. Tomorrow morning, this entire meltdown will be trending on every social media platform on the planet. The host's face went pale as the full implications of what had transpired began to sink in. You see, Jimmy, I didn't come here to destroy you. You destroyed yourself. All I did was give you enough rope, and you hung yourself with it. Live on. National television, in front of your own audience. Gervais straightened his jacket and looked around the studio one last time, taking in the shocked faces of the crew, the stunned expressions of the audience, and the complete devastation written across Kimmel's features. To everyone watching at home who still believes in real comedy, who still thinks entertainers should entertain rather than indoctrinate, remember this moment. Remember what happens when someone dares to speak truth to power in Hollywood. They don't debate you. They don't try to prove you wrong. They try to silence you. He paused, letting that sink in. But they can't silence the truth forever. And tonight, the truth is that the emperor has no clothes, and everyone can see it. With that, Ricky Gervais turned and walked toward the exit, with the confidence of a man who had just won the war. Behind him, Jimmy Kimmel stood in the wreckage of his own making, his reputation in tatters, his authority as a host completely undermined. As Gervais reached the studio doors, he turned back one final time and delivered his parting shot with a smile that would haunt Kimmel for years to come. Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Same time next week? The studio doors closed behind him with a definitive thud, leaving behind a stunned silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Kimmel stood alone on his own stage, surrounded by his own crew, in front of his own audience, but more isolated than he had ever been in his entire career. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the host's humiliation as he struggled to regain his composure. But there was no coming back from this. No clever edit could fix what had happened. No scripted apology could undo the damage. Within hours, clips of the confrontation were viral across every social media platform. Gervais vs. Kimmel was trending worldwide. The incident sparked fierce debates about free speech, cancel culture, and the role of entertainers in political discourse. Jimmy Kimmel's ratings plummeted in the following weeks as viewers abandoned the show in droves. The confrontation had exposed something fundamental about the host's character that audiences couldn't unsee. Meanwhile, Ricky Gervais saw his popularity soar as millions praised him for refusing to be silenced by Hollywood's thought police. The entertainment industry was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Audiences were tired of being lectured by their comedians. They wanted to laugh again, not be told how to think. And on this night, in this studio, one brave comedian had reminded them what real comedy looked like. The age of political preaching disguised as entertainment was over, and it had died live on Jimmy Kimmel's own show. killed by the very guest he had tried to silence.